So I can all but guarantee I have probably the most weird and unique background of anybody you've ever met in this field. I'm not going to bury the lead here. I used to be a spy. Everyone tells me like, you can't actually say that. If you were actually a spy, you couldn't say that. You were not allowed to divulge that. It's kind of true and kind of not true. So just so you're aware, like just getting into technical things because everybody's BS meter goes off, right? Um, you could totally tell people what your job was, and the actual job title, I have to go back because it's been a long time, is human collector. Human meaning human intelligence collector. Um, Basically, what that means is you talk to people and you get information from other humans. So a lot about spy stuff is fake and fiction and Hollywood. Like it's a very Hollywood eyes job. Also, funny thing because everyone always thinks of James Bond first. Sometimes Mission Impossible, but more so James Bond. Funny enough, James Bond villain Christopher Lee was related to the guy who wrote James Bond, Ian Fleming, and it was based upon his exploits in World War II because he was a spy. And then he came out and told people he was a spy. But here's where the classified part's in. I can't tell you what I did as a spy. I can't tell you the missions I took. I can't tell you the nature of the job. I can say, yeah, I did that. And there's a really great story of Christopher Lee where he tells people, hey, people would ask him questions like, oh, what'd you do that was so, your spy stuff? He's like, oh, can you keep a secret? And they say, yeah, of course I can keep a secret. And they say, oh, then you understand. So there's that. But the general idea of the job is two things. One, you need to be able to approach people and talk to them and get them to open up to you, which just means being a likable human being. It means drawing off of people's personal, emotions, pulling off of people's fears, pulling off of people's need to be accepted, understanding what different people from different organizations are going to be, and getting them to talk. So, there's a term that I absolutely hate that gets used, interrogation, which is to break someone. So this is something that I feel like, people who are in the know, who are in the business, when we use the word break, it just means that we have surpassed people's natural inclinations of fear of opening up, right? So imagine, because typically the people we're talking to are not good people, right? So imagine that you are working for a bad organization, and I come in and I want to be your best friend. I want to hear everything about that organization, right? So your first inclination is, I probably shouldn't tell this new stranger about my top secret, villain layer over here. So when someone is broken, what it just means is you've, circumvented that natural inclination to not open up. Like if I were to just imagine, like even thinking like, a lot of people probably work for corporate America or there's, industry secrets, right? So imagine like, I go up to you working at I don't know, a law firm or something, and I start asking about clients, or I start asking about like what kind of case you're on or whatever. Your natural inclination is going to be, what do you want to know? That's privileged information. What makes you want to know that? So trying to circumvent that is someone who's broken. The reason why I bring that up is because a lot of people, when they hear the term that someone is broken, they think of it in the torture cycle. I mean, Abu Ghraib kind of did this, right? Where, there was a lot of horrible things that happened there. So typically speaking, when you work in that kind of a field and people hear the term broken, there's a lot of just negative images. All it means is getting past somebody's propensity to say no, right? I mean, think about this in my next job, which was in sales. I did that going to college, going to production, to film school, to media production. So, inclination number one is what you're trying to sell me is kind of expensive. It's scary. If you're trying to sell me a car that's $20,000, the average person right now, I want to say the average income in the country right now is like 45. So you're selling me something that's going to cost me half a year. If I give you every penny I make for that 6 month period, that's how much that car costs. Now you're not asking me to pay for it in 6 months. You're asking me to pay for it over 5 or 6 years. But it's still like there's sticker shock, right? And And I'm saying $20,000 for a car that's a base small used car at this point because they've gotten more expensive. So if you figure the average person is making 44,000, the average car is around 35,000, maybe 40 if you throw in all the gimmicky stuff. That's a year's salary. So essentially, if I understand you, you're going to make me pay for that over 5 or 6 years. They keep elongating the amount the loans are worth. But that's a scary proposition to most people, right? So I have to make you want it and like me and what I'm saying so that you feel trusting giving me that kind of money. Now you need a car. Everybody needs a car, right? It's almost impossible to live in modern society and not have a vehicle. So we all understand mentally we need a car, but we all are just afraid of getting hosed. Like there's a fear there. I used to work in homes and home repair. And, one of I worked for a good company, but we weren't cheap, right? So one of the things we sold was roofing. And there was a story that's very true where we went to a person who needed a new roof. It was past time for them to replace the roof. That it was falling apart, but they didn't have any money. They didn't have any money at all. So they didn't have money to pay for it. They didn't want to finance very much because they were scared of financing. They were afraid of being loaned money and having to pay it back. So they went with somebody cheap, and that person redid the roof wrong. They went out of business. That it's a cheap fly-by-night company. A lot of home repair businesses are, and they put the roof on wrong. It created leak damage, and then by the time that they called my company that I was working for, we had to tear off the roof that they paid. I want to say like $5,000-$10,000 for. New roof should cost about 20. They were only getting charged, I think it was like $8,000 for this new roof by the fly-by-night company. So by the time we show up, we have to completely tear off that $8,000 roof because it wasn't done correctly. So there's $8,000 gone. Then we have to repair the base structure of the house from all the water damage that had accrued there. So I want to say that was another, I think it was like $5,000 to $10,000 in damages that they incorrectly put on roof cost the family. And then we still had to put on our $20,000 roof. So instead of paying us the $20,000, you paid another company $8,000 that basically went down the drain. You have another $10,000 in damages plus our $20,000. So instead of making something that was $20,000 up front to do something correctly, you ended up paying $38,000, almost twice as much overall. Not only did you spend that $8,000 that you had in cash, but now you have a $30,000 loan to us. So the idea of that stuck with me. Like there are things that you need to spend money on. There's things that you need to mentally prepare for. And you need somebody who's a good salesperson who can explain these things to you because everybody's afraid of that $38,000 rather than 20, right? You're paying twice as much because you chose the wrong person. And I think sales is an important thing, right? Somebody who can talk, somebody who can, who you can trust. Then I have the media thing. So I, good at pictures. I'm good at filmmaking. Then I started trying to make money in that field because originally what I wanted to do was make movies, right? I wanted to be a storyteller. So I understand writing. I've been writing scripts. I've been writing ideas and understanding story structure pretty much my entire life. So I try to make it into Hollywood, and I realize just how morally bankrupt it is. I worked for a couple of television studios. I'm not going to name names here, but the amount of sleeping around that's necessary to do, um, you know, again, I'm not going to get into it, but there's just a lot of moral quandaries that are going on. Also, fairly conservative and libertarian conservative. Not exactly. I mean, people will, literally corner you and ask you about political politics and look for you to say the exact right thing. I'm also a Christian. So, you know, not a lot of popular overlap there in that. So then I just started taking clients because I knew I didn't want to go the television movie production route. And also, I started a little bit older because, again, like I worked for the government for a while, but ended up getting hurt. My back and neck are all messed up. So, been working in the sales, marketing, consumer product photography for a long time now. And then I had to sell my company for personal reasons. So now I'm restarting. So I feel like I've got all of this on. I feel like I've been in sales and talking to people and storytelling for the longest time. And I think that's all that sales and marketing is assuring people that you can fix their problems. It's a reasonable promise to the right person that you can fix their problems. That's all that storytelling is. It's a promise to the right person that you make them believe you can keep. Right? It's getting into their brain that you are one of the good people. So I understand that marketing now is all AI generated, whatever, but there's still an end user out there. Like there's still a person to person thing that's a handshake at the end of the day. And that's the reason why I don't do a voice edit. I don't pretend to have the best speaking voice or be the prettiest. I don't do a lot of fancy edits. That's my background. You're dealing with me. I'm going to take care of you. Promise.